Warning: the following podcast might be too truthful for most liberals. Listener discretion is therefore advised.
Welcome to the Tea Party Power Hour. I am your host, Mark Galar. Today we are going to be visiting with Cynthia Hughes. She is a New Jersey mother, wife, and founder of a nonprofit organization called the Patriot Freedom Project. Her efforts actually support the families as well as the detainees of January 6th, and she's got a lot of attention lately with this. President Donald Trump, Dinesh D'Souza, Steve Bannon, Sebastian Gorka, Mike Lindell, all anxious to support what she is doing. Cynthia, welcome to the show.
Thank you very, very much. What a great introduction. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Before we talk about January 6th, I think you have to begin by talking about the 2020 election, because all of the things that happened on January 6th are predicated on what happened in the 2020 election. A whole lot of people, myself included, think that the election was stolen from Donald Trump, but apparently to voice that opinion is against the law in this new tyrannical state that we have, where apparently, you know, the thought police are out and coming after people for having a different opinion. But you tell me, what do you think about the 2020 election, Cynthia?
Well, everything that we're watching unfold in the country is all tied together. Everything stems back to the 2020 election. Everything. What went on January 6th, all the different indictments that's happening with the president, what we're seeing in Michigan, what we're seeing in Arizona, everything ties into the 2020 election. So we can't overlook that at all. So, and we wouldn't be in this mess if there wasn't, inconsistencies is what I say about the 2020 election.
I thought you were very fair about that in the book.
Well, I'll be very honest with you. This whole endeavor that I have, started and this journey that I'm walking really is about the humanitarian, side of January 6th and the weaponization of government. And I have, he's an adopted nephew. He's kind of like my son, who is the son of a good friend, a former friend, and I raised him. He lived in my home on and off throughout his life. I grew up with some unfortunate troubles, as a child. So my heart hurts when I see a kid suffering. My heart hurts when I see a woman, who's trying to raise her children right, and maybe her marriage didn't work out or something happened, and she's, working and educating herself and doing good to get ahead in life. And so I really took this on because I saw where, nobody else was going. And that was the humanitarian side of this, the children specifically, and the women. But as we raised money, and we were raising it very quickly, I knew that we had to also help on the legal side of things. So, but my priority and my focus is the children and the women. That, to me, that's the real collateral damage in this. Not that a man sitting in prison, like we just saw Enrique Tarrio, he just got sentenced to 22 years, and he wasn't even at the Capitol on January 6th. That is a whole nother topic and a whole nother conversation. But I feel like these men and women, some of the women that are, separated from their children, I think when they know that somebody is out here helping their children, it's one brick off of their load, if that makes sense. And so that is really what where my heart lies in this, in this journey that I'm on.
Well, a lot of us, when we think about J6, we think about the prisoners wasting away in the J6 gulag, as you called it. But back home, there is a spouse that's used to 2 paychecks that only has 1, or a spouse that's used to one paycheck and has 0. But rent has to be paid, mortgages have to be paid, car payments have to be paid, school supplies need to be bought, food has to be put on the table. So the collateral damage, as you're calling it, is very, very significant, especially in cases like this where people who would normally be let out on a personal recognizance bond are being held without bond, and in some cases, I believe, without even being charged. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this is the kind of thing that when you want to talk about the double standard in the United States, and you mentioned this in the book, all you have to do is compare the way the J6 detainees have been treated compared to the way BLM and Antifa protesters have been treated. In some cases, local left-wing DAs have just basically said, we're not going to charge anybody for the riot, even though millions and millions of dollars worth of damage ended up being done. So, yes, there's been collateral damage, and that's where your organization steps in. You've also written a book called Due Process Denied, which I've now read and is, frankly, a great summary of what's going on in these prisons. I mean, for people out there that have heard, oh, the conditions are bad, that doesn't begin to cover it. And you do a great job of summarizing that in the book. But we both agree that there were a lot of unusual circumstances. I would say when you have 150% of voter turnout, that's an unusual circumstance. And I know Dinesh D'Souza is behind what you're doing. And, Dinesh with his movie 2000 Mules and his book 2000 Mules, I think accurately proves without, beyond a shadow of a doubt that there were mules stuffing ballot boxes. In fact, I'm going to have Catherine Engelbrecht from True the Vote on in a couple of weeks, and that's where that data came from that Dinesh used in the movie. So I think most people that have more than a dozen brain cells to rub together would agree that there was something that happened on in November of 2020 that should not have happened. But that is just sort of setting the stage for what happened on January 6th. Everybody's tired of it. Everybody's tired of watching them not prosecute but persecute this president. Everybody's tired of watching Democrats cheat in elections and then say, hey, stop us if you can. So I think all that kind of came to a head on January 6th. But you tell me, because you have had the chance to talk to so many of these people who were there, who have been detained, based on all those conversations, why don't you give my listeners a summary of what you think happened on January 6th?
I think, from my perspective, I feel like, people went there to support their commander in chief, who told them to come and peacefully and patriotically protest. And I think people went and what I do know is that, as people were marching to the Capitol and they were, walking that way, very happy and, jovial and just, happy to be there to support their president. As they approached the Capitol and as they were getting closer to the Capitol, you hear many people say that there was already chaos, unfolding. I think personally that Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of DC and a few others, they were hoping for this. This is why they denied the request from President Trump to have the National Guard there present. I think that they were hoping for something to happen. I don't think they thought it was going to be what it turned out to be. And I think they were planning. They were pre-planning. Nancy Pelosi's daughter, she took out a permit to film on January 6th at the Capitol. What was she hoping was going to happen? We're learning now that there were, film companies and different people that, were there at the Capitol and, operatives there at the Capitol present. I think to disrupt and cause chaos. We know there were, FBI agents. We know there were, provocateurs. I mean, we know, and you got to wonder, were these people invited there specifically by, the future Biden administration, the former Obama administration, Nancy Pelosi? And we know that there were people within the Trump administration that, turned on him and wanted to see, harm brought to him. I think that, people that really, really look hard at January 6th and really, really analyze it. I mean, I think people should be really up in arms and angry over the fact that you had a president that has been treated like no other president ever has in the history of America. People within his own administration trying to infiltrate him and use the American people on the day of January 6th and many other times. And since then, you heard a statement come out yesterday from Enrique Tarrio that the government came to him and asked him to lie about Donald Trump. And maybe I don't know the whole circumstances about his statement, but that's, what I read. There's so many pieces to what really went on January 6th. We haven't even touched the surface. And we look what happened with Tucker Carlson. He got 3 days out of 5, where he was able to start, and I think he would have kept going for weeks until everything was out that he was investigating. But I'll tell you, there are things that happened during that week that Tucker Carlson was showing footage. You saw Officer Sicknick walking around inside the Capitol in perfect health, in perfect condition. Had that video been released to the family of Julian Cater, to the lawyers of Julian Cater, maybe Julian Cater wouldn't have taken a plea deal and got sentenced to 80 months in prison, 81 months. There's so many moving parts to what happened on January 6th. And there's a lot of good people that are really on top of this. You have, Julie Kelly, who used to be at American Greatness. Now she's doing her own thing, who's really deep diving into the most intricate parts of what happened on January 6th. She's really doing a lot of investigative journalism. You also have Laura Luma, who is doing a lot of stuff too, in terms of investigative journalism. But you don't really have a lot of people that are going deep into the humanitarian side of this. And that's, kind of where I come in. And that's where I'm doing, the legwork.
It was a conversation that you had with Tim, and you spent a lot of time talking about what happened to him in the book. He, again, for those who've forgotten, is the person that you said was kind of like an adopted nephew or son to you, and that you helped raise him. And it was in a conversation with Tim that you said the idea came to provide emotional support. And this whole thing kind of started as a group chat format or something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Tim, first of all, I wrote the book, Due Process Denied, to detain the families, the fallout. I wrote the book because it was a way for me to humanize Tim. Tim's been massacred, in the media and in the country, probably in the world. I mean, I get emails from all over the world about him. And this was a way for me to, to tell his story. Tim is very private. And I really kept him out of the media and out of the spotlight while he was in jail. Tim is still in jail, by the way. And you'll learn more about that in our next series of Due Process Denied, which will be coming out soon. But Tim would call me and he would say, can you help, so-and-so's, wife? Do you think you could try to, help her direct whatever, can you help? Can you take some money? He had a few $1,000s in a savings account. And he said, could you take some money out and put it on, so-and-so's commissary because his wife doesn't have the money? Or he would say, can you buy a book for, this person who's in a different jail? Or he would say to me, could you give some money for so-and-so's wife? They need help with back to school. And it was like, all right, finally, I said, Tim, we can't, I can't take any more money from you need this when you come home. And I said, let me figure out what we have to do out here. And I just started, just organizing and trying to come up with a way that we could help these families, that we could help each other. And in conjunction with that, Tim had a public defender he hates Donald Trump, like most of them do. And when you would have a conversation with him and you would try to talk to him about what's going on in Tim's case, he could never conversate with you without talking about Donald Trump. And we couldn't stand that. Tim was like, I will be pro se before I move forward with this lawyer. So on top of that, Tim was in the Army at the time of his arrest. He was an Army reservist. He had been in the Army Reserves for 12 years at that point, and they were kicking him out. And when you are in the military for more than, I believe, 7 or 8 years, you're entitled to a JAG attorney. And so we got a JAG attorney involved after they, kicked Tim out. But he had his mind made up. I mean, he didn't even go talk to Tim. He didn't have a conversation with Tim. He didn't conversate with me except for the one time. And they went and had all these, military hearings without Tim's, participation. And I thought that's really, really, very alarming. So I kind of went on a mission to find Tim, like a retired kind of military attorney, to help with that. And I came across this really great attorney in Pennsylvania who was, in fact, a retired JAG attorney. And he's also a criminal defense attorney. So we brought him on the case, and I was able to get him appointed by the court. Tim was able to put that request in. So I felt like, okay, we're on to several different things here where we can kind of, lift the weight off of these families and these defendants just ever so slightly, by, trying to get different attorneys appointed or, get pro bono attorneys involved, help these women, with back to school and Christmas. And next thing I knew, I was talking to the great Dinesh D'Souza and his beautiful wife, Debbie. And, I had good support from Julie Kelly, and it happened so fast. It was like overnight, Teacher Freedom Project was born. And we have really been, really active, in fundraising and organizing and helping the families. We've helped hundreds of families at this point, hundreds. And we've also helped on a lot of the legal cases. And we're shifting now, we need to focus more on the appeals now. You could have the greatest attorney on these cases, the best criminal attorney. And in fact, we do work with the best G6 criminal defense attorney. But they can't make progress. They can't make leeway. You're not going to get a fair trial, whether it's a jury trial, whether it's a bench trial, in the city of D.C. It's non-existent. We saw it happen yesterday with Peter Navarro. It's not possible. There's not ever going to be a free thinker as in terms of a judge who can put their political bias down and do their job and uphold their oath to office. We're not going to find that. There is one judge who I feel is very close to that. And he just wants to get through it and do his job, and he's very reasonable. There's one or two like that. But, you have people in the city of D.C. I mean, there's wanted posters at bus stops. There's wanted posters, all around the city with people that, participated in the 4-hour event on January 6th. How can anybody have a fair trial? How could one person have a fair trial in the city of D.C. when you know that any potential juror is very, very tainted? So there's so many moving parts to this. There's so many rabbit holes that we have to go down, and we have to win on January 6th. If we don't win on January 6th, we're never going to have a free election again, a free and fair election. And nobody's ever going to trust the Supreme Court. They're never going to trust our 3-letter agencies, the FBI, the CIA. We're in trouble here. We're in big trouble here.
I don't think anyone trusts them now. And I can tell you that a friend of mine has an uncle that retired from the FBI. And at this point, when people ask him, what did you do? He just says, I'm retired law enforcement, because he's so ashamed of the FBI and what it became after he left. Yeah. Now, I think that is really sad when at one time, when you told people you were with the FBI, oh, wow, the halo went up around your head. Everybody was so impressed. And here's a guy that's so ashamed of what's happened at the FBI after he left. He doesn't want to tell anybody he was ever there. And I think that little story, and I know it to be very true, is indicative of what's going on around the country. People don't trust the FBI, the CIA. People don't trust government. People think the judges are crooked. I think somewhere in the book you mentioned that a prosecutor turned to one of the J6 defenders and said, I hope you suffer, or something to that
Yeah,
extent?
yeah.
Which defendant was that?
So, well, there's been a few, but the one that stands out to me, that we wrote about was oh God, I can't think of his name right now. I'm drawing a blank, but it was a father.
Oh, that's okay.
It was a father who went to the Capitol with his son, and he didn't do anything violent, doesn't have a criminal history, good father. And he got charged with misdemeanors, and he was arrested, and he was going to jail. I mean, there was no ifs and buts about it. And you had this female judge who had no mercy on this this father who was facing what he was facing. So he begged this judge, he begged her to let him do his time on the weekends. And she said no. She basically told him, you should have thought about this. Your son, your family is going to have to suffer because of the choices that you made that day. I mean, that is what we're dealing with. And that's not an isolated incident. We see that all the time. I mean, it happened also with Paul Hotchkiss. He had to give up everything. He lost his job. He had to give up his cats that he loved, had for, years. These judges have no heart when it comes to a Trump supporter. And if let me just tell you a little bit about Donald Trump, if you don't mind.
Oh, please. This show's all about the MAGA movement, the Tea Party movement, Donald Trump. When you're on this show, you could take as much time as you want and say whatever you want about Donald Trump. So go ahead.
Well, I held a press conference on Capitol Hill last summer, June of 22. And I had a couple of families there with me. Jerry Perna was one of them, Angela Morse, Sharon Caldwell, Bonnie Nichols. We had Joe McBride there. We had a few lawyers there. And we had a couple of members of Congress, because at that time, members of Congress were really, really in fighting mode. It has changed since that time, but hopefully we're gonna start seeing that change again. But so after we did that press conference, I was contacted by President Trump's people, and one of the things that they wanted to know was how could everybody be bailed out. That he wanted to help somehow get what could he do to help facilitate that. And I said to this person who called me, I wish it was that easy. Nobody's getting this is not with the Bail Reform Act. It's not like you go in and you pay your 10% and you get released from jail. It doesn't work that way. And a judge decides if you're going to have freedom or not, period. And the judge will decide if there's going to be a cash or a monetary financial figure for your release, should they decide that you can be released from jail. So we kind of had some conversations, this individual and I, and then next thing I knew, I was having a meet with him, a meet and greet. And I spent a lot of time with him, and we got to talk a lot about January 6th and what I had, what I was encountering with these families. He wanted to know about the families. He wanted to know about the children. And so since that time, I have had the luxury and the honor of meeting with him several times. And I spoke at a Save America rally with him. And I've held a couple of fundraisers at Trump Bedminster over this past summer. And he showed up and he gave a speech, and he met with a lot of the families that I brought there. And he's just, I call him a gem. That's what I tell him. I always bring him little candies that are made, they look like gems. And he's just got so much heart. He's so loving towards these kids. We just had an event there 2 weeks ago. And the first thing he said to me when he came out, "Where's the kids?" And I said, "They're over here, President Trump." And he said, "I want them up here with me." And he brought them up on the podium with him. And, he wanted to talk to them, and he hugged them and he reassured them. And when he got done speaking, myself and a couple of the kids, we went in the back with him to like another room. I say the back. We went to another room with him. And he was talking to the boys, and, he was giving them words of encouragement about starting school, and, telling them that, don't believe what you hear on the news. I'm going to be fighting for your dads. And one of the little boys, 11 years old, he looked at President Trump and he said, well, President Trump, he said, it's not my dad. He said, my mom's going to jail. And President Trump just, you could see his heart sank, like he wasn't expecting that. And it's hard enough that, you see these boys separated from their fathers, but to hear a little boy say, my mom's going to jail, that is hard. Every time, I hear it, it guts me. It breaks my heart. I'm very close with this family. This is a mother of eight children, and she has her youngest is 7, and she's a little girl, and she's going to be sentenced next month, and we don't know what's going to happen. And so President Trump and his pure, good, great self, he just reassured Nick, and his name is Nicholas, a little boy, and he said, I'm going to write a note to your mom, and he autographed a hat, and he just said, that we're fighting, and we love you. And this little boy was so moved by his conversation with President Trump. He was very emotional. He cried his little heart out. He's got this whole little area in his bedroom where everything that he has gotten from, with Patriot Freedom Project in terms of, a hat or a shirt, or when I always bring them, like they've come here to my home. I've had them here at my home, the kids over the summer, took them to the beach, let them swim in my pool, let them stay. These kids have to survive this trauma. And President Trump knows that. But President Trump has the weight of the world on him right now. And he's trying to fight for everybody he can. There's a lot of people that are, caught up in the weaponization of government. I'm not even going to say January 6th anymore, in the weaponization of government, because there are so many different things that are happening now because of the 2020 election. And it is coming from a weaponized government. And so, but this president, he's such a charitable man. I've had 2 events here in New Jersey, and I had a small event in Mar-a-Lago where he met with the families, reassured the families, talked to the families. He took his own, angst and his own, stuff that he's dealing with and put it to the side to talk to these people to make sure that they knew that he was going to be fighting no matter what, that he was not, going to stop fighting. And I adore him. I just adore him. I love him. I think he is a great person, a great human. I think he's got a heart of gold. He's very charitable. He's a big supporter of Patriot Freedom Project. He loves the work that we're doing. He loves that I'm, connected with the children. That's our conversations. We talk about the kids and how we're helping with back to school and, and everything else. And, just 2 weeks ago, you saw he hosted all 13 families from those 13 soldiers that we lost over in, Afghanistan because of the current, the current guy that's in the White House now. He's just an incredible person. He cares about everybody. He just cares about everybody.
Well, as people have pointed out more than once, this guy didn't need this job.
That's right.
I mean, he had one of the best lives in the world. He could be somewhere, on an island somewhere, sipping mint juleps or whatever, and just letting the world go by.
That's right.
But no, he chose to get involved, and he and his family have just paid an enormous price for it. But as you point out in the book, there's a reason why people like him. He's like no one else we've ever had. He made promises before he went into office, and then when he got into office, he actually kept those promises.
Yes.
And how rare is that? How many U.S. presidents, have talked about moving the embassy in Israel and then didn't do it? How many presidents have talked about the need to do something about border control, immigration reform? Trump actually did it. How many presidents have talked about the need to improve the VA system in terms of the quality of medical care that our veterans were receiving? Trump actually did it, whereas the others did not. In all fairness, Obama tried, but he passed such a weak law with no teeth in it, that there was never any benefit from it. With Donald Trump, you could actually see in the surveys of the various military people who use the VA medical services that things greatly improved under Donald Trump. The economy was roaring. The Wall Street Journal said they had run out of words, actually run out of words to describe how well the economy was doing before the pandemic hit. So this is a guy who knows what he's doing. He has real world business experience, and he knows how to run this country like a business. Obama was the emptiest suit I think we ever had in the White House until Biden showed up. So people love this guy, and other people don't understand it. They say things like, "Oh, he's been married 3 times," and "Oh, you know, he cheated on." Yeah, exactly.
Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. And then, meanwhile, you've got Biden with 2 kids that are coke addicts, and his daughter's a sex addict thanks to his showers with her when she was little. At least that's what she thinks. And none of them care about that. But Trump was married 3 times, so oh wow, really, really bad guy there.
I want to tell you one more thing. A few weeks ago, I was up at Bedminster. There was an event there, and I saw the president, and I was, in the same room as him, and it was a very relaxed environment. And he was, enjoying watching some golf on TV, and he had, some great people around him. And Jared came into the room with his children, his 2 youngest children, his 2 boys. And, and you saw the little one, go over to President Trump and, Grandpa, and this and that. And, President Trump embracing his grandchild. And this, Eric was there. I mean, these children of his, obviously they're grown adults, but these children of his, they are respectful, they are profound, they are educated, they are articulate, they are kind, they are, I could go on and on. They are, they're present in their children's lives. They're generous. They love their father loves them, and it shows. They are a very close-knit family. They are a very loving family. They support each other. All this BS out here, that Ivanka doesn't bother with her father anymore. That's exactly what it is. It's nothing but BS. She lost her mother very tragically not too long ago. And people need to remember that instead of coming out here and right away, oh, she doesn't talk to her father anymore. She lost her mother. And she lost her mother very tragically. And, I lost my mother, not tragically the way, Ivanka did, but I lost my mother. And it's a very, very hard adjustment. And, I had young children too when my mom died. And it's a very hard thing to adjust to. You call it the new normal. And just because Ivanka Trump happens to have, some money in the bank, and and she's got a great education, and she's got obviously part of a massive fortune or whatever, she's still human. And now she's without her mother, and her young children are going to grow up not knowing their grandmother. And this is what I mean when I say to you, I got involved in the political world that I'm in. There's nobody cares. Like the humanitarian side of what we've all endured as, whether you're a Trump supporter, whether you're just indifferent to it, but there's no compassion anymore. And, the first time I met President Trump, I brought a sympathy card to her. People forget that they bleed the same way we do. And we have to treat people the way we want to be treated. And, just because they're on a different, level or stature than us doesn't mean that they're not human. I really get very bothered when I see the 2 tiers of, you say justice, but, humanitarian, the 2 different sides of it. You saw Barack Obama's wife on the cover of every magazine and, always, in the media and always on a TV show. And then you saw this beautiful woman who nobody knows, be treated so horribly. President Trump's wife, Melania. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting her really, but this is such a wonderful family. And it's so blatant in front of us. You can't say it's okay for one and then turn around and say it's not okay for the other. The Me Too movement and the leftist ideology about, believe all women and, women's rights or whatever, but only if you think like them, only if you behave like them.
I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, if you go back and look at the way Monica Lewinsky was treated by various feminist groups in the United States, they weren't for her, they were for Bill Clinton. We take a look at E.G. and Carol. Oh, wow. I'll say this on the air. I don't care. What a joke.
It is.
She stole that story from an episode of Law and Order, right down to the name of the department store and the place within the department store where the rape supposedly took place.
That's right.
There is zero evidence, that Donald Trump ever did anything to her.
He didn't.
In fact, the statute of limitations ran a long time ago, but New York wanted Trump so bad that they passed a law allowing people to bring these old cases. They created a window of opportunity where you could bring these cases. Same thing for Christine Blasey Ford. Mm-hmm. And having zero evidence that she was ever attacked. And in fact, one gentleman came forward and said, I was at that party. I was the one who did that. And nobody would even listen to him. They wouldn't even let him on the air. So when it comes, it's exactly what you're saying. If you agree with them, they're going to support you. If you're E.G. and Carol, you're going to be believed, even though after that interview she did with Anderson Cooper, I don't know how anyone could believe her about anything. Same thing with Christine Blasey Ford. Lied about being afraid to get on a plane. I mean, just so many lies there. No backup whatsoever. Then you have Tara Reid, whose mother called Larry King. That episode is still available. People have documented that that's her that called Larry, saying my daughter is being molested by a famous politician that she works for. And yet the left doesn't want to believe that, right, because we're talking about Joe Biden. So if you're Bill Clinton, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, you can do whatever in the hell you want to with regard to molesting females, and the feminist groups in America aren't going to say a thing. But all you have to do is make up an allegation against a Republican, and the feminists are all on board, with the Me Too stuff. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's absolutely ridiculous, the double standard we have. And you talk about the emotional side of things and these people being just like the rest of us. I mean, I remember Justice Kavanaugh breaking down over this, and actually at one point getting angry about this. And all the left could say was, as well, he didn't control his temper very well that day. I mean,
I know.
Give me a break. What would you do if you were accused of molesting somebody 30 years ago and you knew darn well that you hadn't done it?
That's right.
Yeah. So it's really crazy. People that I thought were normal with common sense have shown me that they're not normal, and they don't have common sense. Good example. Drag queens going into kindergarten classrooms.
Just stop.
Why are we even debating this?
I know.
If you'd have told me, I just turned 60 recently, and if you'd have told me when I was in college that one day we were going to be debating whether or not drag queens should be going into kindergarten classrooms, I would have said, you're crazy. Who would ever think that that's okay? And I've had so many people say, well, you're just transphobic.
Oh,
no, I'm not.
God.
Live the lifestyle. Lead the lifestyle you want to, but stay the hell away from our children.
It's true.
Stay away from them.
It's true.
So It's not just J6. It's not just all these indictments, the ridiculous impeachments, the Russia
It's
stuff.
life.
It's everything.
That's right.
The left has gone completely nuts. And it's almost like, in some cases, they don't even believe this nonsense, but they're looking at us and kind of smirking and going, you can't do anything about it.
It's true. It's true. I'll tell you, there's everything that you just said, I go, oh, I should tell him this. Oh, I should tell. There's like so many things that just popped up in my head, but I want to tell you this. I have a couple of children, and, my children are all grown, and, they've gone to college, and, I was divorced from their father, and I really focused on making sure my children were not the collateral damage in that very toxic marriage and then horrible divorce. And I did a really good job with my children. And I have one child who is gay, and, nobody wants their child to be gay, but she is. And I don't love her any less. She's a wonderful, wonderful daughter. I have a wonderful relationship with her. And I have a great relationship with her partner. And they're both very hardworking. They're both college graduates. They're educated, and they live a great life. They're very happy people, and they're very girly. And I talk to them about this. We talk about transgender and things like that. And and both of them feel, there's a time and place. Okay, if you want to be transgender, but it doesn't have to be shoved down our throats. It shouldn't be near our children. It shouldn't be at story hour for a third grader. It shouldn't be in the libraries. And these are two gay women that are saying that. And, but people don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear that. And I'll tell you, they were somewhere recently. I don't want to say where, but they were somewhere recently where it is a very liberal area and very democratic and very open. And they were walking down the street, and they were very close to each other. And somebody came up to them and got very aggressively in their face and said, don't bring that, what stuff to this place. They're so hypocritical. This is a very liberal area. Okay. And here you had somebody in this very liberal city telling, two gay women, you're not welcome here. The hypocrisy is maddening. It is absolutely maddening. But I want to ask you something. Did you see the news yesterday with Danny Masterson, the guy from that 70s show? He got sentenced to 30 years in prison because two women said that he raped them. Now, I don't really know all the logistics of his case. I didn't follow it, but you have to wonder, right? If he in fact did that to two women, well, I'm glad that he got 30 years, and 30 years wasn't enough. But I'll say this, if he didn't, where was Hollywood? Why did they abandon him? They that's what they do. They hide their prey. They hide them. There's so much. And look at the mayor in New York yesterday. Here's another thing. Look at the mayor in New York yesterday. It's so blatant in front of our faces, the hypocrisy. It's crazy. It's just crazy.
Well, I hear all the time if someone says something about, well, Donald Trump took all those documents, and I'll say, well, that's because he was the president and he had the legal authority to declassify them. And Joe Biden did not. And they'll go, don't bring up Joe Biden. Don't bring up Joe Biden. That's whataboutism. That's whataboutism. Every time we bring up something with Donald Trump, y'all are like, but Joe Biden. That's whataboutism. I said, no, that's not whataboutism. That's me pointing out that you're a hypocrite.
That's right.
That's me pointing out that you're a hypocrite. If you have a problem with President Trump taking classified documents from the White House, which he had the authority to declassify, but you don't have a problem with documents that are classified going back to Joe Biden's days as a senator for some reason, then you're a hypocrite. And they'll go, well, the difference is when they asked Trump for the documents back, he argued about it. Well, Biden gave the documents back. I said, oh, well, just possessing those documents was a felony for Joe Biden because back then he was a senator and he had no authority to declassify whatsoever. When you're the vice president, you can only declassify documents that you yourself classified. So When you say that Joe Biden cooperated, I don't call giving some of the documents back after 30 years cooperating, but forget about that. When you cooperate, you might get a lighter sentence, but if I went out and robbed a bank and then I said afterwards, hey, I gave the money back, that's not cooperating. So I just have to laugh at their logic. I had a guest on many, many, many years ago. His name was James Dellingpole. He's a British writer. And he said that he considered liberalism to be a case of arrested psychological development. He said most liberals stop developing psychologically in the teen years. It's that time when you think you know everything, you think you're entitled to everything, you throw fits when you don't get your way, and he feels that adult liberals don't act any differently than teenage liberals, and that's probably an insult to teenagers. Hey, before we continue, let's take a quick break, do a little business with America, and we'll be right back. And we are back with our guest, Cynthia Hughes. Cynthia is the author of Due Process Denied. She's also the founder of a group called the Patriot Freedom Project, which gets legal services and all types of other help for the families of J6 detainees. She's caught the attention of a lot of big players in the conservative world and is doing a tremendous amount of good work. And before I forget this caught my attention when I was reading the book last night. You guys have a way that people can send mail to J6 detainees?
We do. We have on our website something called Connect with a 1-6er, and it's constantly being updated because these guys are constantly being moved around. And, you have almost 1,200 people that are caught up in the J6, debacle. And of that number, you have probably just over 400 people that are, in jail. Some are, in pretrial detention still, believe it or not. You have some people that have already gone to trial and they're waiting to be sentenced. And you have people who have been sentenced and they're serving their prison time. Jail is different than prison. A lot of people don't realize that. Jail is very different than prison. We try to keep the Connect with the 1-6ers updated as possible. We could be a little bit better with it, but there's so many moving parts to Patriot Freedom Project, and we're constantly doing things. We just got done helping a lot of the families with back to school items, and now we're focused on the holidays. We're trying to raise more money to be able to help these women. We want to make sure that they don't have to choose. Do we pay a bill or do we buy a Christmas present? And a lot of these women have, more than one child. Some women are now working 2 jobs. Some are working 3 jobs. Some are working their first job. Not that they're working their first job, but they're back to work because they were able to be home because their husband worked. Some of these women had just given birth when their husband got arrested. Some women were waiting to give birth when their husbands got arrested. We help facilitate travel to DC. There's a lot of people that, need help with a hotel, or they need help with, a plane ticket or a bus ticket or gas because they're going to drive. So we try to help with that. We're really focused on, helping the lawyers with the appeals. So many appeals are pending. So many appeals are being filed, and so many more are going to be filed. And we really need to focus on that because that is really where we're going to win. You can't really win so much in the trials. You got to be focused on filing to the appeals court and ultimately to the Supreme Court. And because hopefully, after the next presidential election, when we have, a reasonable administration, whomever that's going to be, they're going to do the right thing, and they're going to maybe put some pressure on these judges, and they're maybe going to stop funding to the DOJ. And, maybe there are going to be impeachments on judges. Who knows? But that's what we need to see. You saw Ron DeSantis the other day said that, when the sentencing came down from Enrique Tarrio, that, he said that, he would pardon him. And that's all well and good. But why hasn't he talked about it all this time? Why did it take for, the allegedly the leader of the Proud Boys to be sentenced to 22 years to get Ron DeSantis to even speak out? I will tell you why, in my opinion. I feel very strongly that his campaign is broken. His campaign is weak. And this was a way to, gain some momentum again or garner some attention. We know the presidential candidate that has been talking for a year and a half, 2 years now about pardons is President Donald Trump. He's the one that has spoken out very, very aggressively that there will be pardons, there will be commutation of sentences, and he will be looking at every single case very, very carefully. And he's the only one that has been talking about January 6th. These other hopefuls that are running for president, they're starting to talk about it now because they know they have to. They're being forced to. You haven't heard Mike Pence talk about it, and Mike Pence feels the same way today that he did on January 6th, that Trump supporters are the worst people in the world. So there's many moving parts to what happened on January 6th, what has happened since January 6th, what's going to happen beyond January 6th. It's called weaponization of government. And if we don't get somebody in the White House, no matter who it's going to be, but if we don't get somebody in the White House that's going to be for all the people and is going to do what they say and is going to really look hard at what happened on January 6th, I don't know. I don't know how we come back from any of this. And that is alarming when you think about it.
I could not agree with you more. I have to say that when I was reading the book yesterday and a little bit into the evening yesterday, one of the things that just really upset me was the detailed description of what these J6 detainees are putting up with. The food they're eating, the mold. You mentioned that they're being denied access to family, to clergy, to medical treatment, dental treatment, and in some cases, even their attorneys. You mentioned one particular prisoner was told he would not be allowed to participate in his own trial. It just seems to me that this is, like we're some sort of third world banana republic right now, that these constitutional violations are being allowed to happen. Based on the number of conversations you've had with the families of J6 detainees, your own personal relationship with a J6 detainee, give the listeners some feel for what the day-to-day life for these people actually is right now in these prisons where you say one of the wardens was very, very, the deputy warden was very, very biased. The guards are all biased, and the living conditions are, third world.
They really, really were. I mean, of course, we are almost 3 years into it. Can you believe I'm even saying 3 years? We are almost 3 years into this. So things have changed. There's a lot of things that have changed. Lawyers are getting access to their clients now. There are family visits happening again. From January of 21 until December of 22, there was no visits at the DC jail. There were no visits at the Northern Neck Regional Facility in Virginia. You could not have a visit. In a lot of the other jails that were holding January 6ers around the country, because a lot of people think that everything was happening in DC, and that's not true. People were being held in different jails all over the country. And in those other jails, you had, video visits. A lot of families were able to, to have a visit with their family. Through video, but that was never the case in DC. That is still not the case in DC, and that makes it very, very difficult for families that are in a different state and have to come up with money to travel just to have a visit, and even then, beyond the walls of DC, in the prisons. You have families, who have a loved one who's now serving their prison term, And, you are at the mercy of the BOP system, which is very different than what we saw in DC. And you have some families, like we have a wife who has 3 children. They live in the Midwest, and the prison that her husband was put in is a 10-hour drive one way. So, you got to make serious arrangements when you're going to go for that weekend visit, right? You got to have money for a hotel. You have to have money for tolls, money for gas. And sometimes, a few times now, she has gotten to the prison and with no warning, after a 10-hour drive with a 3-year-old in the car and an 11-year-old and then a teenager, she's told the visit was canceled. No warning, no explanation, no nothing. And that is what a lot of these families are dealing with.
This is just psychological warfare. I mean, one of the things you mentioned in the book was that they are intentionally putting these detainees as far away from home as possible to make it hard on their families to visit them. Sometimes even the dates they choose for different things are meant to traumatize the prisoners, having things done on a date of the death of a loved one, the anniversary of the death of a loved one. It just sounds to me like these people are horrible. And I don't understand what they're fighting for. I mean, they're fighting for kids in kindergarten to see drag queens, and they're fighting for recreational drugs to be legal everywhere. And I really don't understand what these people want the world to be. I mean, I know someone came on my show recently and said Jane Goodall said we should only have 500 million people on the planet. Well, Jane, if you feel that way, I'll invite you to be the first person to hop off.
I mean, it's just crazy. That is absolute crazy talk. But I'll tell you this. I wish I could say to you, 3 years into this, I wish I could say to you that this is a January 6th thing that we're seeing in the jails and the prison. And sadly, it's not. It's not. We have 2 guys that were moved from DC several months ago. One was supposed to go back to his home state in Florida. The other one was supposed to go to, up near Pittsburgh where his family is. But that's not the case. They're both sitting in a prison in Philadelphia, in limbo. And, you have no idea when they're going to be, when they're going to be moved. Here's my nephew here, for an example. He's here in a prison here in New Jersey, and I haven't seen him since he's been here. And he's been here, it'll be a year next month that he's been doing his prison time here. And the reason I haven't seen him is, every time you're going to have a visit, you got to go through, a strip search, and you got to bend over, and you have to be looked at. I don't want him to go through that. I don't want him to have to endure that. I mean, I get it, protocol or whatever, but I just, to me, that is just so degrading and belittling. And I don't, we can handle it. We talk on the phone several times a week. We write to each other. He doesn't have a wife. He doesn't have children. He's strong. And we have to do this work. We do this work together, him there, me out here. When he comes home, he'll get to see, firsthand how, the operations of Patriot Freedom Project are. But he is scheduled to be released here like any day. And he should have been given a date. He should have been told by the prison system, this is going to be your release date. You're going to leave the prison on this day. And either you're going to go to a halfway house in so-and-so area, or you're going to go on home confinement with your family. But no, they treat these people as if they are, second-rate citizens, like they're beneath them. And it's not just January 6 people. It's anybody that has been, incarcerated. Now, don't get me wrong. Let me say this. You got somebody in the prison who violently murdered a cop, a woman, a family member, raped a child, hurt a child, maybe you might not be so quick to be happy-go-lucky around them, right? But when you got a kid who's 18 years old and committed a crime for the first time and is in solitary confinement, is being denied access to their mom, to their dad, or to their grandmother, because maybe mom and dad aren't in the picture, you are in dangerous territory. You are setting this kid up for failure. If we don't put the right programs in place and we don't start being a little bit more kind and compassionate to people that have made a mistake, that have a chance to redeem themselves, I don't know what to say. We have a very failed judicial system, a very broken jail and prison system, and I don't know what we do about that other than having the conversation. Everybody in the country wants to have conversations about abortion and transgender and, men competing in women's sports and what bathroom do I use when I go into the McDonald's? Am I going to be in a bathroom with my, 1-year-old little toddler girl and there's some man dressing as a woman? I don't want that. You don't want that. But
nobody does.
But nobody wants to talk about what's going on, in this part of society, right? I've had to call the prison a few times, and there's two different people that I can speak to in terms of Tim's case. One of them, he doesn't say much, but you can tell he has a heart, and you can tell he's very compassionate, and you can tell that he wants to do the right thing. The other one, he's a total POS. He's got no heart. And there is some controversy around Tim. There's no getting around it. There's some controversy around him, like there is about several other J6 defendants. But here's the deal. To me, if I were a warden, if I'm a corrections officer, if I'm a case manager, I'm looking at the history. I'm not looking at the here and now. I'm looking at the history. Is there a history to back up what this man did, what this woman did? What is the history on this person? Tim doesn't have that history. Tim doesn't have criminal history. Tim's educated. Tim has college, degrees. Now, I'm not saying that a person who has college degrees can't be a bad person. Of course they can. But I'm looking at the history and I'm digging deep. And the one case manager who I mentioned you could tell has a heart, we had a conversation about Tim. And I enlightened him to some things. I enlightened him to the abuse that Tim has suffered in his life, to the fact that his father was in jail his entire life and hasn't been in the picture, to the fact that his mother's boyfriends have abused him. And it changed his perspective a little bit. He didn't really voice it to me, but he dropped little subtle hints. When Tim first got arrested and he was here in New Jersey, he went from the first, jail, the county jail he was being held to, and he went to another jail here in New Jersey. That's a really hard jail. It's got serious criminals. And you didn't know what was happening. We were in the beginning, stages of J6, and you didn't know what was happening. You didn't know where he was going to be taken to next. The marshals do not tell you when they're going to be moved. You just may not get a phone call for a week or 2 weeks, and you have to sit and scratch your head and pace the floors wondering, where is your loved one? So when Tim got to this one jail here in New Jersey, I was able to get one phone call from him, and he said to me, I really would like a Bible. And I said, okay. And he said, can you get me my Bible? He has a very special Bible, and there was no way I was going to be able to. I mean, we were in 2021. You weren't allowed to go in the jails. But I got the most wonderful, ombudsman. She was so wonderful. She goes, I don't care why he's here. She got him that Bible. She helped us get the power of attorney paper signed. There are people in this world that exist that have a heart, and they don't want to get up, caught up in the politics of whose side am I going to take? And we need more people like that, because that is how we're going to stop this lack of unity and this division. You don't have to like Donald Trump. You don't have to like Joe Biden, but you have to respect the office, and you have to respect, Donald Trump is the former president of the United States. And we don't have that in this country. You can't say Donald Trump should be under indictment × 4, and then Hunter Biden is walking around, protected by the government, when we know that there are crimes that he has committed. It's like enough is enough now, and we need to focus on what's going on within our judicial system, and that is my next quest. Let me tell you, you're going to see a lot about that in our next book.
When is the next book coming out?
Well, we don't have an actual release date. We're in production, if you will. We're in the writing stages. I have a really great co-author writing with me, and I'm really excited about volume 2 coming out.
Well, be sure to have your publicist let me know, because I'd like to have you back to discuss volume 2. It's great to see someone like yourself, someone who's like myself, an average, everyday person, standing up and doing the work that other people should be doing. Those people we vote for and put in office, but they're not.
Yeah.
And someone has to do it. And there are people who sit around and talk about things all day long. And then there are people like you who actually do something about it. Now, I want to ask you one last question, because you were saying we can resolve, or you were saying rather in the book, that we can resolve all of this without bloodshed. A couple of weeks ago, Sarah Palin famously said that she thinks because of these indictments against Donald Trump that we might be headed toward a civil war. I know the book's been out for, about 6 months. Do you still believe that we can resolve all of these issues without bloodshed?
I do. I have faith in our country. I have faith in the people, that live in this country. I get the most phenomenal letters from, people that support the work I'm doing and care about what's happening. I believe in our country, and I believe in the people that, that want to uphold the Constitution. I know that this isn't the end. I know that can't be it. And I know that there are people that have a reasonable head. Listen to this conversation that you and I are having. You haven't interrupted me. You haven't stopped me. You haven't interjected with your own points. You've allowed me, the opportunity to say the things that I think, that I feel, that I hold dear in my heart. And you've given me this moment to be able to share this with your listeners. And we know that that exists, beyond this conversation. There are many people who feel that way and are capable of that. And it's people like you and myself that have to have these daily conversations that is taking place right now and continue it and let it trickle down to the next person, and so on, and get our country back on track where it needs to be. And that is what you're going to see a lot in our next book. And I'll tell you, I don't know if you know this, but in conjunction with our book, we also have a docuseries that we started, and part 1 is already out. And it's also called Due Process Denied, The Families of January 6th. And if you go to dueprocessdenied.org, you can see part 1 of our docuseries for free. And you can see where you can purchase our book and how you can support the work that we're doing. We just finished filming for part 2. You're going to see some really great faces in part 2. And you're going to hear a lot about what we've talked about in terms of legality in part 2. This is where it has to happen. A lot of people are out here saying, I'm going to do, but they don't do it. A lot of people, they throw out lip service and they do a lot of things for optics, but they don't do the work. We've done the work. We are very, very hands-on. And we are very involved with a lot of the families, a lot of the children. We are really, really helping where it matters. We had a family who lost their health insurance last year. And one of the kids in this family has, a pre-existing medical condition. And they couldn't change their health insurance from this great health insurance that they had to state-funded Medicaid until this child had gone through this medical procedure that they had to go through. We paid COBRA for the entire year for this family. These are the things that nobody is talking about. And these are the things that nobody is looking at. And these are the things that have to be, we have to remind the American people what their donations are going to and how important that they are.
You mentioned, and first of all, yes, amazing work being done. And you said, you're letting people know what their money is going toward. I think we need to bring up something that came up in the book before you go, and that is there are copycat organizations out there who aren't really doing the work, who aren't getting things done. And that is something that I find despicable, but it seems like every time there's a tragedy and there are people doing good work, the grifters move in and impersonate it And then in those organizations, most of the money goes to the people who run the organization. So people need to make sure that they don't just go out there and say, Google, I want to help J6 or whatever. Let's tell them one more time how they can make sure that they're getting in touch with your group and not one of these copycat groups that may not necessarily be doing the type of work that you're doing. We'll just put it that way.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that opportunity again. So you can reach us at patriotfreedomproject.com. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Truth. You can find us on Getter. You can also visit dueprocessdenied.org. I really encourage your listeners to, pick up a copy of our book. I am very transparent. I answer all the emails. I try to make the callbacks to people that want to speak with me. This is a we thing. This is a we thing. This is not a me thing. This is not a Tim thing. This is a we thing. And, we have support groups that we run. We have mental health support from some really great professionals in the country. We're going to grow this community. This community has been very stable, and this community has been very needed. And we're just going to keep on. We keep our head down. We stay on mission. We look ahead, and we don't allow the distractions to infiltrate us.
It takes a lot of courage to do that. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. It's definitely God's work. And I thank you for being here. This came about rather suddenly. Your publicist and I were working on a number of other things, and she was like, "Oh, wow, Mark, do I have a guest that'd be perfect for your show?" And she shot me over a PDF of the book, and I started looking at it, and I wrote her back instantly, and I said, "Can we do it this week?" because I wanted you on the show that badly, because life has a lot of people that, as you say, pay lip service to things, and then they have other people who actually roll up their shirt sleeves and get something done. And again, you and your organization and Tim and the families of all these J6 detainees fall into that category. So once again, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. You have a great weekend.
Hey, you too. And when that next book comes out, you let me know.
I sure will.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I want to remind you that if you'd like to subscribe to our newsletter, you can text the word T, that's TEA, to 44144. That's the word T, as in taxed enough already, to 44144. You can also go to our website, teapartypowerhour.com, and there's a sign-up form there. While you're there, don't forget to check out the Trump coins. Just click on the Trump coin tab at the top of the page, and I think you'll find some coins that make a great Christmas gift for the Trump supporter on your list. Once again, thanks for listening, and no matter how you're listening, on what platform, on what player, be sure to click on that like button so you'll be notified the next time our show comes out. Thanks.